Welcome back to my channel. If you indeed want to get closer to God, this is a right channel for you. Please, if this is your first time of joining, click the subscribe button and drop your comments in the comment section. For our esteemed existing subscribers, you're welcome and thank you so much. Today's message is centered on there is a time for everything. And this Bible scripture is going to be taken from Ecclesiastic chapter 3. It is a passage of poetry which centers on God's ultimate authority in heaven and on earth. Humans have mastered many things in this world, but some elements of our existence are beyond our control. We cannot conquer time. God is the one who appoints each moment. Our lives contain a mixture of joy and sorrow, pleasure and pain, harmony and struggle, and life and death. Each season has its appropriate time in the circle of our life. Nothing stays the same, and we as God's children must learn to accept and adjust to the ebbs and flow of God's design. Some seasons are difficult, as we are in Nigeria facing a difficult season of subsidy removal. Hardship has skyrocketed, and likewise other countries are experiencing some challenges. And we may not understand what God is doing. In these times, we must humbly submit to the Lord's plan and trust that He is working out everything for our purpose. Now, the scripture says, everything that happens in this world happens at a time God chooses. He sets the time for birth and the time for death, the time for planting and the time for pulling up, the time for killing and the time for healing, the time for tearing down and the time for building. He sets the time for sorrow and the time for joy, the time for mourning and the time for dancing, the time for making love and the time for not making love, the time for kissing and the time for not kissing. He sets the time for finding and the time for losing, the time for saving and the time for throwing away, the time for tearing and the time for mending, the time for silence and the time for talking. He sets the time for love and the time for hate, the time for war and the time for peace. What do we gain from all our work? I know the heavy burdens that God has laid on us. He has set the right time for everything. He has given us a desire to know the future, but never gives us the satisfaction of fully understanding what He does. So I realize that all what we can do is to be happy and do the best we can while we still live. All of us should eat and drink and enjoy what we have worked for. It is God's gift. I know that everything God does will last forever. You can't add anything to it or take anything away from it. And one thing God does is to make us stand in awe of Him. Whatever happens or can happen has already happened before. God makes the same thing happen again and again. So stay blessed, remain blessed.